Oh, baby, you got what I need. But you say housing's a trend. Oh, baby, what the heck is going on out here, folks? Holy smokes. Yesterday was diabolical. What was that? That was the already day 2 implosion of Carney's liberal cabinet. Everyone else on different pages, everyone else saying craziness, making the party look bad, making Carney look like a jabroni that he is. It is fascinating to watch. So what happened? Well, we talked about yesterday, where you had Mr. Robertson, who had different ideas of what housing pricing should be. You had Guilbeault, who had different ideas of what pipelines should be doing. We had Anita Anand, who had different ideas of what Israel should be doing. We had Melanie Joly, who says, I'm protecting your jobs, but Honda still left. And then to top it all off, Philippe Champagne gets on TV and says, there is no budget coming. We're just going to wing it. Oh, man. What the heck? And that really was the first day of what happened. After all that stuff happened in the afternoon, then the evening came, and that's where our reporting comes in. Because then these ministers went on television. These ministers went to interviews and doubled down on what they said. Oh, man. And we're going to get into all of it. But before we do that, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the show, helps us to grow, and helps bring a different perspective to the masses that is a different point of view than the mainstream media. Now let's get into the story. New Minister of Housing, Gregor Robertson, said that he doesn't plan on bringing housing down in price. He says we need to bring more affordable housing. He says we need to make options more available to people, but house prices need to stay where they're at because we need to keep things stable. And that was an ugly look because, well, Carney said the day before, saying, no, house prices need to come down. I assure you, from everything I've been saying the past couple of days, house prices need to come down. It's incumbent. His new housing minister says, actually, no, they need to stay where they're at. And this upset even the liberal voters. It was like, this isn't what I voted for. No, duh. It's not what you voted for. Welcome to the party, pal. But the one thing that upset me the most is that Gregor Robertson hops on to Power and Politics with David Cochrane and says this.
So I get why supply was challenged there. How do you explain the increase in the development fees when you were there? Because I used to cover city council in St. John's, and they didn't want to raise the property tax because of people with fixed incomes. They didn't want them forced out of their homes. So they shifted it all to development charges as a way of just driving up the price for new home buyers because they weren't already voters and different things. Is that what happened in Vancouver? How do you explain that?
I wouldn't. It's not really what happened in Vancouver. I mean, the challenges with the city are, it's really cost recovery around the charges that the city levies, whether it's for business or development. With development cost charges in Vancouver, there's a cost recovery aspect that to invest in the infrastructure you need. The city has to make...
Let me sum it up for you. He says absolutely nothing about, it was about the taxes. No, it was about this. It was about cost recovery. They had everything but what the actual issue was. David Cochrane, doing absolutely nothing as a journalist, earning absolutely no salary aside from being a talking head for the Liberal Party on CBC. What he really should have asked was, and what was never mentioned in the segment, was the Vancouver model. The model that essentially criminal organizations use to funnel money into real estate casinos and other means to clean their money, which led to the huge skyrocketing of housing value in Vancouver, which he was the mayor overseeing at the time. He was mayor from 2008 to 2018. The Vancouver model became famous in operation between 2015 and 2019 specifically, and we're still feeling the remnants of it today. And David Cochrane, Mr. CBC journalist, said nothing about that in this segment. That's why I left it on mute and let it play, because that's about as productive as the conversation was for you to hear. I'll be quite frank. And that really should frustrate you. It shows you that, again, these people just are holding the water of this party, not asking any real questions. The whole point of that segment was what led to the skyrocketing values of real estate in Vancouver? What was it from your perspective as mayor? What did you see? But not at any point. What Vancouver's famous for is the Vancouver model. Didn't touch it, didn't talk about it. That tells you everything you need to know about Mr. David Cochrane. But I know you saw it, because I know I saw it. The chaos of yesterday was, it set media ablaze. left, right, center, everywhere. Everyone was like, what the heck did we just watch? That was probably the worst, most ununified first day of cabinet that we've ever seen. Like, it was bad. It was not good. And so Power and Politics brings on a panel to talk about this very issue. And David Cochrane, well, it's still doing David Cochrane things.
They want to build an east-west pipeline. And as you know, these things are built by companies, not governments.
Okay, so Tim, we know Daniel Smith is not going to like that. We know Scott Moe is probably not going to like that. What do you make of that answer from Stephen Guilbeault, who has moved away from those files, but he's still the Quebec lieutenant in this country?
I guess there's a new historic moment coming on pipelines. Is there, or the National Film Board's about to tell the story? Well, what the hell is he doing weighing in on that? I mean, I get it is something that is dear to his heart, but it has nothing to do with his current remit. So back to what I said a moment ago and Supriya said a moment ago, guys, get yourself organized or you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to have nights like this every night. Well, why did Cabinet Minister X say that? Why did Cabinet Minister Y say that? Mark Carney yesterday in his interview on another network made the point that, yep, pipelines are on. He's coming out saying no. Again, not a great message, particularly if you're saying to the world, come do business here. Let's invest here. We're serious players. Well, on day 2 of your cabinet, one of your senior ministers is saying, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Jordan, he's not wrong in the point that there is not like there is a proponent with a big west-east pipeline.
But he is contradicting what his boss said yesterday.
Well,
directly contradicting his boss.
Yeah, well, yes, but on the narrow point I just made about a proponent, he's not contradicting anyone because there isn't one, right? But Mark Carney has said, yeah, we want to be an energy superpower, we're open to pipelines, but a pipeline is not the only measure.
He wasn't talking about that thing specifically. He was talking about other things. And like the hip hopping, tiptoeing around, trying to hold water for this party is diabolical. You can tell who's paying the salaries of those at CBC with this particular segment. Everyone on the panel is like, what Guilbeault said is in direct conflict with what Carney has been saying. So which one is it? Well, he wasn't specifically talking about the East-West pipeline. It was, are these people for real? This is the gaslighting that happens. And when even more serious things continue to happen in this country, don't forget moments like this, where they try to gaslight you even in the most egregious of ways, when they're sitting in front of panelists who are saying one thing, and they still come back and say, well, it's not actually what is going on. Keep in mind, always remember these moments. For when things become a little more nuanced, for when things kind of cause you to start scratching your head, they will always gaslight you in order to save their agenda. This is Class A, Exhibit A of exactly what they'll do. It's how it goes. Yesterday was a dumpster fire for this Liberal Party. You can't swing it any other way. Even Liberal supporters are saying, gee, that was rough. And they still will turn around and gaslight you saying, it didn't really happen that way. No, I just saw my eyes. And here we go. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. Because order in council became a popular thing again yesterday by Mark Carney. Remember when Mark Carney zeroed the carbon tax and used a swig of a pen to sign away the consumer carbon tax from 100% down to 0%? And he did it with an order in council, acting as if it was an executive order, stealing it from the United States, making himself look like Donald Trump. You remember that? And people had a lot of issues with that because that didn't go through parliamentary processes. It's like, you can't actually do that because that legislation like that has to go through Parliament. You can't just sign it away as a prime minister, but he's making it look that way. Well, my friends, he actually was able to get away with that with the carbon tax. This is what happened with the carbon tax. At least with the carbon tax, when he took it from 100% down to 0% without Parliament being in session, he was actually allowed to do that because legislation of that specific bill allowed for him to be able to do it. I'll show you what I mean. When it came to that specific bill, the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act grants the federal cabinet regulatory authority to adjust the carbon tax rate. Therefore, the cabinet, with the Governor General's assent, legally reduced the rate to 0 via an OIC, even though Parliament was not in session at the time. So again, it's still not all within the Prime Minister. Actually, it comes from the cabinet, which comes with royal assent with the Governor General. So again, even him it was all ceremonial. It was fugazi. It was what it was. And then he took that same mentality. He took that same scene and applied it to cutting taxes for the middle class yesterday. You have it right here. He's going to go with the little swing of the pen and say, well, we're opening up the economy.
As we look to build out this economy, it's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut et respecter nos engagements, notre engagement pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Look at what he did. He did nothing. What he did was literally nothing. It was as significant as me signing on this piece of freaking paper towel right here. That's how significant it was. He did nothing. And he's making it look like to Canadians that he has all this power. That's what this is. This is a play to make it look like to Canadians that he has all the power, that he's the one in control. This is pure political theater. How do I know? Well, let's look over the Constitution Act, shall we? When it comes to money votes and royal assent, Section 53 says bills for appropriating any part of the public revenue or for imposing any tax or impost shall originate in the House of Commons. Did you catch that? It's highlighted for you. We'll zoom in a little bit. Bills for appropriating any part of the public revenue or for imposing any tax or impost shall originate in the House of Commons, which means you can't change tax law by yourself as Prime Minister or with an order in council. Cannot do it. It has to be a law that passes through the House of Commons and the Senate, receive royal assent, and then it's in. That's the only way it can happen. And yet this man stood up there yesterday saying, I just swing of the pen. Taxes down for everybody. He did nothing. But again, it's the gaslighting. You know what I'm talking about? It's the political theater. It's the lying. It's the deceit that goes along with it that is concerning. Trying to communicate to Canadians that he has a mandate. Communicate to Canadians that he's in control. Communicate to Canadians that he's got it all in hand. That's all this is. Political theater. And it should frustrate you. It actually frustrated one of our senators. Senator Leo Housakos says, some are comparing this to the antics of a certain president. I think it's worse than that. This kind of photo op only serves to undermine Parliament and the legislative process by misrepresenting how our system actually works. And Senator Leo Housakos is spot on with this. It is concerning. And you'd best know that if the shoe was on the other foot, and I hate to do this because it's tiring at this point. It's exhausting. It makes me want to vomit. But it's the reality. You know, if Poilievre ever did anything like this, if he was leader, he would be branded as the worst threat to the Canadian democracy that the country's ever seen. And that's how broken our media is, how important shows like ours and so many others are to continue to shine light on the issues that the government doesn't want the light to be shined on. And to kind of finish on a relatively niche topic, but it's important to those who are in this community, and I think it was important to talk about it, was this story here. Protesters gather at BC farm as ostriches set to be killed over bird flu fears. I'll read the first few paragraphs and I'll kind of explain the story to you. And it's going to give you very COVID vibes, I have to say. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says the cull of a flock of ostriches in southwest BC will move forward in order to fight the threat of avian flu, but it won't be providing details of the operation in advance. The notice comes as supporters of the farm are gathering in Edgewood, BC to try to stop it. The CFIA says it is moving ahead of the cull following a court ruling issued May 13th that found the agency had followed the proper procedures for making the decision to order the procedure, and that it has a broad mandate to make the decisions on behalf of the Canadian government. Though the judge in the case said he sympathized with the farmer for the economic and emotional toll the loss of its birds would have, he also wrote in his decision that must be balanced against the greater public good associated with the CFIA's mandate of working to stop the spread and mutation of the deadly bird disease. And if we go down here to the bottom, this is where it gets really interesting. The ruling also took issue with the farm's argument that the CFIA lacks the expertise to make rulings on ostriches as its policies are designed for more common poultry such as chickens and turkey, noting that the agency had a long history of regulating ostriches and emus as well, and dismissed the argument that because the ostriches that have survived may not be infected or contagious, the order to cull given in December should be overturned. Judicial review must never be conducted with the benefit of hindsight, Zinn wrote. Although the infection had later abated with many ostriches surviving, that could not have been foreseen at the time. The stamping out policy guided the agency to depopulate the entire exposed epidemiology unit without delay. So what's happened with these ostriches is obviously that we had this huge spread of avian flu across, the continent here. And these ostriches caught it. And because of that case, and they're trying to quell the spread of the flu, well, the CFIA, government agency, said, well, these guys got to go. And it took months for the ruling to really go through and for them to be able to fully cull the flock. But then during that time, the ostriches, many of the ostriches, ended up overcoming the flu and became better, and they're more healthy. But they're still upholding this decision to cull the entire flock. And ostriches, well, you know, it's not like they're native to Canada, and they have to be very gently taken care of if they're up here in Canada. And farmers who work hard to feed them, to take care of them, to continue to breed them should not be penalized for what just happened. Sure, if the flu is in the whole flock and they're dying and it's looking bad, then sure, I get it. But the fact that they were cured, they were fine, and they still are moving forward, it's like, we don't have hindsight. We just got to get rid of them. This is government overreach in a lot of ways. Again, I, my friends, am not an expert in this. I'm not an expert in farming, not an expert in taking care of cattle or animals, for that matter. And I'm not an expert in the passing on of diseases and understanding how that all works. However, I read the story and understanding it from the limited knowledge I have. I'm not going to pass judgment. However, it does need to be talked about. The conversation needs to persist. You have a healthy batch of birds. Shouldn't they be studied to see how they overcame the flu and see if there's other ways we can improve and protect against something like this in the future? But no, you're just going to kill them anyways. That's the frustration the farmers have. And that is the tension that is happening with the protesters, the CFIA, and the farmers. It is a wild story, and we're going to keep updating you on it as it goes on. It's really important that we continue to do so. And we do know that some of those farmers do watch our show, and our hearts are with you. You keep moving forward, and we'll keep an eye on this as it transpires. But anyways, have yourselves a good one. I'm out.